and I'm going to hand over to Tim and to Martin. So over to you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and good morning all. And I see already some nice messages in the chat of people where they are. So we are based in London, in the middle of Westminster, actually. And it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Good Habits and talk about this exciting topic. Today we're talking about upskilling and sustainable employability in the age of automation. Let's start with the agenda. So what are we going to discuss today and who is doing what? So first, I will start off, talk a little bit more about Good Habits to tell a bit more what we do. Then Martin is taking over. Martin is our specialist from the field, and he will talk about looking at the current and future of the L&D landscape and how to build a culture of learning, combat skills gaps, and encourage sustainable employability. But let's start with an introduction. So who are we? Martin, maybe you want to kick off and then I will introduce myself after you.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Martin Coles. Pleasure to be with you today. And I work in the customer success department at Good Habits. That means I get to work with a range of HR and L&D teams globally to help them leverage Good Habits content and tools to realize their L&D ambitions and their goals. And what's great about working at Good Habits is I get to speak to a lot of diverse teams across lots of different sectors, lots of different countries and regions, and I get to strategize with them and help them overcome challenges and factor in their own organizational culture to help them with their specific cultures of learning. This is great, not only because I get to share a lot of best practices that we see day in, day out, but I also get to see some new ways that L&D teams are engaging learners and then use that as a loop then to help other customers. So it's a really great, I'm in a very privileged position to talk to lots of HR and L&D people. Back to you, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Tim Segers and I work as a country director in the UK. So based in the London office. I work for Good Habits 8.5 years and spent most of my time actually talking to lots of people like you, L&D, HR leaders, about the role of digital learning in the workplace. And it's an exciting topic. It's constantly changing. I think the priority of learning also is shifting to the positive side. And this topic about sustainable employability really excites me. So what I do usually, of course, share the vision of Good Habits, but also always trying to find out how can we support building a learning culture that makes people ready for the future. So that's why I'm also happy to share more about the topic with Martin. Let's start off about Good Habits. So a very brief intro. So I know you come for the main topic, so I keep this brief, but I think it's also interesting to know what we do. So Good Habits is a vision-driven company, right? So we started with a vision, and the vision about learning is that it's something good for everyone. It's not just for leaders or for salespeople or for operators. Learning is something good for everyone in the sense that if you grow, it makes you feel a little bit better, maybe get more self-esteem, maybe even more productive or more happy as a human being. So in that sense, we compare it with other good habits. Good habits, for example, walking outside, get some fresh air. It's a good habit. You know, once you come back, you feel more energized and refreshed. Eating healthy. If you eat more healthy, you will feel better. I think learning and personal growth is in that same corner. So that's the vision, learning for everyone. So the mission, to excite as many people as possible with their personal development. We believe that people are, and I think you will acknowledge that as HR and L&D people are the ones driving your organization forward, right? So that makes personal development key in our eyes. And our role in the learning space is to make that work for you as an organization. So we try to really build a learning culture together with you. So how do we do that? By making learning accessible first. We say, open it up, remove all the boundaries, give everyone access. But also make it accessible in the sense that it's very easy to find the right courses. Very easy to start a new course or to dip in and take whatever you need. So bring it into the flow of work. That's really one of the important pillars. Second one is make it practical. So if you talk about digital learning, it's perfect in the flow of work. It's always available. You just need an internet connection. So if you are in a digital course, yeah, we believe it should be practical, that you can apply something right away in your job or perhaps in your daily life. So you will see that in our courses, but also by giving you the opportunity to learn in different ways. So if you like to read, you can read. If you like videos, you can watch a video. The third pillar is fun. And that's underestimated, I think. But if you want to build that culture of learning, if you really want to help people grow, I think it helps if you make it fun. Because in the end, it's about their time. Everyone is busy. There's a lot of alternatives. So if you want to spend their time on learning, you have to make it fun. And how do we do that? And I think that's really unique. We are in the core an educational company, so we always have solid educational design, but we make sure that we transfer that to our own media company, Good Habit Studios. And Good Habit Studios is responsible for delivering entertaining media formats. So if you are in our courses, you will see clear objectives, learning objectives, but you can consume the content by videos, watching documentaries, reading magazines, doing quizzes. So that combination leads, I think, to a nice learning experience. So as a company, we are growing fast. So for your perspective, when I started 8 years ago, we were with 10 employees. We are now at 500 employees all over the globe. So a global company. We have translated and localized all the courses in 20 languages, from Chinese and Turkish to English, of course, French, Italian, you name it. Not just translated, but also localized the content so that it comes as close as possible to the end user. And the type of content that we offer is personal development. So in that sense, it's the skills and knowledge that you can apply everywhere, regardless what your job is, regardless which industry you work. And you see that reflected in our client base, right? They come from all over the place. They all have different ambitions. They all have different goals. And we try to bring digital learning in such a way to them that it works for their strategy. But in the end, every course is useful for each individual. And that's how we try to make people sustainable for the future. So that's a bit about Good Habits. Really, passionate about it. I really love it. So if you want to know more about it, always happy to have a chat. But let's go to the main topic right now. Martin, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. And let's dive into the topic. I'd like to briefly start the session off by setting the scene for the current L&D landscape. And the world that we're living in today is arguably going through a lot of change, and we've seen a lot of that change happen in the last 10 years versus the last 50. And there's no denying that we live in a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And organizations are responding to this new world by increasing automation. And according to the World Economic Forum, around half of businesses indicate that they will reduce their workforce size due to technology integration, and 85 million jobs will be disrupted globally. And that's really, really scary, of course. But the good news is that the same technological advancements are creating the jobs of the future as well. And 34% of businesses will expand due to those technological advancements. So that's really, really exciting. We don't even know what some of those jobs are going to be. Now, we also see that this fast pace and this technology is creating some skills gaps now and will create skills gaps in the future as well. And again, just to cite the World Economic Forum once again, 54% of employees need upskilling, reskilling to respond to changing work environments. Yes, these could be the technological advancements, but as we'll see later on, the demands for soft skills will remain high as well. Today's organization will need to be agile and fast learning on an ongoing basis in order to be successful. And I think we can all think of organizations that we grew up with that were household names, household brands. And we thought that these guys, given their successes and their placements in the market, we assumed that they would be around forever. And then one day, the new kid on the block came along, and they brought in a new way of doing things. And then the old company, the one that was there around forever, fell by the wayside. So I think today's organization, in order to be successful, needs to be the disruptor rather than the disrupted, and it needs to be adaptable in order to thrive. So with all this change and the need for adaptability in mind, my question to the good HR and L&D people that have given us our time and attention today, thank you very much. I would like to ask you, how do you think learning at work will change in the next 3 years?
So, interesting question, because I think learning at work is changing. I've changed the layout so that there is a chat option. You can put it into the chat here, or you can put it into the chat under the slide. Interesting comment from Gabriel. I see. I was in a session with some people yesterday, Gabriel, and you see that one, Martin. ChatGPT will take over. What's your thoughts?
I do see it. Yes. That's an interesting one, and you'll see later why, Gabriel. But yes, I'm not so sure it will take over. I think we will move closer with AI in conversational learning. In fact, Good Habits has started introducing that in our content as well. So we see the power in that as well. So I think conversational learning and AI will integrate. I don't know if it'll necessarily completely take over, though. I'm a bit scared about that.
I think what's interesting is so there's a couple of people mentioned AI. Jack's mentioned AI. Soma's mentioned AI as well. I like Chrissy's comment about micro-learning, individualized learning pathways. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think it's something that I'm planning to sort of bring up a little bit later on. Micro-learnings, I think, are really important because the thing that we hear time and time again is that people are too busy. So we must refine the learning experience for the learner. We must respect their time. So yeah, I think this is definitely the way to go, and curating those in a playlist or a program or a pathway is the best way to respect someone's time.
Yeah, and Don's picking up the comments as well from Vlad and Nicola have both said about communities of practice, communities of experts, peer-to-peer. I'm really interested in that community space at the moment as well. So again,
we're in it right now. We're in this community. It's great, and I think that's really important that we have things like this, like these webinars, where we can communicate with one another. Otherwise, we're in these silos. So yeah, thank you LSG for putting this together. But of course, we can have this can happen outside of these environments as well. So yeah, absolutely, I completely agree.
Yeah, and again, there's Claire's picked up on the comment about micro learning as well. Jack's mentioned gamification. Potentially that may go that way. It's interesting, Jack, because I think that actually there's less gamification happening. But this AI-driven personalization, Tim, I think that's the other part of AI that I think people haven't necessarily picked up on. Awesome. Thanks for your comments. Really appreciate them. Back over to you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Andy. Really great to put the feelers out there and take advantage of this community and this hive mind to see where we're potentially headed. I'd like to bring us back into the now, if I may. And whilst we said that technology is potentially taking away some of our jobs, it's creating some jobs at the same time, and it's also encouraging these skills gaps as well. We in HR and ND field find ourselves in a predicament now, and that is people are leaving our organizations. Now, I found these most recent stats from the Office of National Statistics. And this is the estimated number of job-to-job resignations in the United Kingdom from 2001 to the last quarter of 2022. So they're fairly recent results. And obviously, as the title suggests, job-to-job resignations means that people are leaving a job to go to another job, just to clarify that. we see that the highest number of resignations are happening in the last quarter of 2022. I don't know what the latest stats for Q1 are, but I'll be keeping an eye on those for sure. We also see that the resignations were lowest during the 2008 financial crash, and then at the very, very beginning of COVID as well.
Max.
And after COVID, we can see that the number of resignations rose sharply, and they're the highest they've ever been. So what does this tell us? Well, I'd say this tells us that the Great Resignation is still alive and kicking, and it's probably not helped and very likely exacerbated by the current cost of living crisis that we're facing. People might be looking for high paid opportunities and organizations that can offer perhaps a better work-life balance or maybe a better employee experience. And organizations need to work very, very hard now to keep hold of their top talent. And I've got to say, it's tough out there for you HR and N&D folk out there who are expected to deliver more results and help combat some of these challenges, potentially with less resources. So my hat's off to you. Now, development opportunities or lack of them are also a good reason for people to consider leaving an organization. Good Habits likes to commission its own market research reports, and we asked 13,000 employees across Europe, just over 1,000 of which were in the UK, and 65% of the respondents said lack of development opportunities is a valuable reason to seek out a new employer. Yes, pay is an important factor, but development opportunities and career development is a very big part of this equation. Now, I've put a QR code on the screen there where you can download that report where I got that data from. Like I said, Good Habits likes to make these reports periodically, release industry insights and thought leadership. So we'd encourage you to have a look at that report and maybe sign up to our newsletter to see reports in the future as well. And I'd just like to also take a few moments to visualize the current and future workforce needs. I'd like to credit the McKinsey Global Survey Beyond Hiring, how companies are reskilling to address talent gaps. And they started off by asking respondents to consider if and when they expect skills gaps are likely to occur. And as we can see on this graph, many organizations, 43%, are seeing those skills gaps now, or will see them imminently as well. Only a very small percentage, 6%, only a very small percentage say they're not expecting any in the next 10 years. What's also interesting from that same report is the survey said that the most common tactic for addressing skills gaps in the last 5 years has been hiring new people, bringing in new talent. And that was cited by 2/3 of respondents. So looking back at the last 5 years, but actually looking ahead to the next 5 years, respondents are much more likely to cite skill building rather than hiring as the most effective way to close those skills gaps. Half of those expected skills gaps in the next few years ahead are going to be through skill building, and actually 31% of organizations still cite hiring as the most effective way. But what we're seeing here is that organizations, whilst they still see some value in hiring to overcome this challenge, we're starting to see a shift from hiring to skill building as a way of overcoming this problem. Also, again, from the same report, to address those talent needs, organizations asked in the report what they were going to prioritize. And these were the top 5 most prioritized skills. And the reason why they're putting these skills in is to enable the implementation of a new offering, business model, or strategy. And what's interesting here is to see that whilst the skills needed to deal with the age of automation, such as advanced data analysis and mathematical skills, scored in the top 3, we see the other skills featured here in the top 5 address the need for social and emotional skills. And I've put these ones in purple here. So yeah, we will need to learn new skills in the age of automation, but actually the skills that organizations are prioritizing are still social and emotional and soft skills based. So my question to you is, what are your biggest development priorities right now? What's your focus points? I'd love to hear what you're all working on.
I think this is an interesting question, Martin, because yeah, what are the development priorities? So please feel free to put them in the chat comments. Interesting chat going on as well about the ages of people. It's some interesting ONS data that I'll ping a link to. It's in there as well. But what are you working on right now? What are your biggest development priorities? When you're talking development, Martin, are you talking about from a business perspective? Or are you talking about from an individual perspective?
I think both. I mean, what is your organization focusing on? It could be well-being, it could be building specific or addressing skills gaps. What are your, generally, what are your talent development or organizational training development initiatives focusing on right now?
Okay. And we see it straight away. So there we are, 3 comments. Vlad, Soma, Victoria, all talking about management.
Yeah, it's funny. We hear that every day, actually, and I think for middle managers, a lot has changed, right? The last couple of years, it's much more challenging to manage a team when people are working all over the place, right? Some are working from home, the others are in the office. Well, not so long ago, you could manage a team that were all in the same office, which is easier, and I think it requires different skills from managers. We hear that every day. If we talk about priorities, is leadership training.
Yeah. Christie's picked up on the retention question and keeping people within the company and the industry.
Huge one, yeah. And I'm curious, Kirsty, is using training as a way of supporting that?
Yeah.
Kirsty says yes.
It
caps.
It also comes. Sorry, Mark. It also comes back in research, right? That people expect to be invested in personal development, and personal development has then a positive impact on retention. I think it also is in line with the market conditions right now. The cost of labor is pretty scarce, and it's very expensive to recruit someone. So yeah, it's easy to make a business case for development then.
Yeah. Is it, again, I was talking with some people last night and who actually and how measures cost to hire. It's interesting. We've got interesting. Somo has picked up about soft skills for feedback, and Nicola, from a personal perspective, is data skills. And I'm hearing data skills in a few places at the moment.
Yes. Me too. I think, learning how to visualize data, read data will be a massive one for all functions across the business.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's move on from this one. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Really interesting. And I 100% agree with you, Nicola, about data.
Thanks, everyone. So we've looked at a lot of, data, thrown a lot of stats your way, and actually, we'd like to give you some tips and pointers here. Learning digital skills and human skills will be very important in the age of automation, and we still see that organizations, in particular our L&D departments, will have to address these challenges of the emerging skills gaps. We'd like to take a few moments to give you a few tips. And I realize that this drum gets banged every time I watch one of these webinars, but it's worth saying over and over again. It starts with having a clear understanding of the challenges that your organization is facing. But of course, trying to anticipate the challenges that your organization will also face in the future. How do we do this? Well, I think it starts with having conversations with stakeholders and team members across the organization, the people that are in the trenches day in, day out. They will know what their teams are struggling with and what they need to help them to achieve their performance-related goals. Of course, we can also zoom out a little bit and follow publications in your specific sector, read articles, see what your competitors are doing, and gain that bigger picture perspective on how this could be evolving. How can we be more competitive, essentially? Once we've got a good idea of the needs that the organization has, be it on a sort of individual, organizational or team level, we can take stock of the resources that you might have at hand, and then of course implement the most business critical first. And by the way, business critical could be boosting morale of the organization, if you've recently had a restructure, for example, or boosting well-being. But the key here is to pick one or two initiatives rather than working on all the challenges and all of the needs right away, because I'm sure you'll have a massive list of them by having all of those conversations. Now it's time to make something to address those one or two initial initiatives, and perhaps you've already got some content in your library, but going back to what we brought up in the first question about using micro learnings, maybe the content that you have is a little bit bloated, bit time consuming. Can you refine it? Can you cut out some of the fat and respect the time constraints of your learner? It's likely that they're short on time. Sometimes at Good Habits, we work with people in L&D teams that are one or two individuals managing thousands of learners, and they don't always have the time to generate their own content. They're likely very reliant on the content libraries that they've bought in to meet their needs. And for these specific customers, what they do with our content is, a Good Habits course typically takes 3.5 hours to complete. They pick out the bits of our courses that they need, the building blocks from our courses that they need to address their talent initiatives, their talent needs, their development paths. And I think, that's a really great way of respecting the learner's time. Of course, you can sprinkle in your own messaging and content, usually if you're using a learner management system, to give that learning a little bit more context as well. So the idea here is really maybe to leverage what you've already made or what you already have, and maybe make something new within it that's a bit more streamlined and refined for your learner. This one's a biggie. Communicate your learning vision and your strong learning why to your learner. And this one is definitely one that you shouldn't skirt over. How have you effectively communicated why your learners should be engaging with your learning pathways? Why they should be engaging with your recommendations, or maybe the pathways or initiatives that you've made. They're essentially the sort of the whiffing for the learner. What's in it for the learner? Why should they engage with your program? Why is it important to the organization? Or why is it important to the function of the team? And organizations who sprinkle this whiffing or this why message into their communications usually see much higher levels of engagement in their programs compared to just offering a library of content and allowing people just to self-direct their learning. The next point, and close to the last one, is, are the managers and the leaders bought into your learning vision? If not, it's very likely that their people will struggle, the people within their teams will struggle to have or feel like they have the permission to learn. Again, this one's huge, and this is one we're always working on at Good Habits, is how can we generate that buy-in with this particular group? And I think this goes back into the first point that we made, which is consider the skills your organization will need and in the future. It's understanding the needs and the pain points and the challenges of those teams. Only then, if they've been truly understood, and if we provide them with the solution, only then will they see it, and only then will they have the buy-in that's needed for their very influential position for allowing learners and encouraging learning within their teams. Now, we've spoken a lot about L&D taking responsibility here with these tips, but of course, we can't always pick up on all individual needs with our pathways programs, with our conversations. And actually, most people are acutely aware of what they need to do to get better at their jobs. Not always, but a lot of people are. A bit of a bugbear of mine is actually when customers are a little bit too prescriptive, perhaps, about what they include in their learning pathways or environments for people to to self-serve. So this one's really about omitting too much, I suppose, and not giving people enough choice. I say we can't always assume that we know all the needs will be addressed. That we'll know all the needs are addressed by our pathways and programs. Just one small example here, for example, is that we have a course within Good Habits which is called The Power of Sleep. Now, of course, some organizations will go, well, that's not work related, it's too soft, it's a potential distraction. Someone doing that during their workday is not a good use of time. And maybe in some ways that they're right, but in other ways I would like to counter that way of thinking, because of course, if you can sleep better, then it won't directly impact business performance. But if someone sleeps better, it's likely that they're more alert, it's likely they're happier, and this could boost performance in an indirect way. The last
to add on that, Martin, I think we speak a lot about with our clients and prospects about the growth mindset, right? And essentially, I think the growth mindset is about embracing personal growth, and then it doesn't really matter what you learn. So basically, we say if you want to boost the learning culture, you shouldn't care that much about what they learn. You need to make sure that they are learning, right? So if someone wants to learn more about better sleep, it's fine. As long as people have that growth mindset, it becomes easier for you to cope with change as an organization, because change is then not so scary anymore. You believe that you can learn new skills and new knowledge.
Great point.
I saw a very nice question here about the ROI. You talked about the power of sleep. How do you measure, the success of the programs? The ROI. I think it's the big question here. And if you talk about human skills and personal development, it's sometimes hard to make a direct connection. What we see recently a lot is that we try to create a benchmark. For example, for retention, we say, okay, retention, you invest now in personal development, and let's look 1 year from now. Did it make an impact on retention? And if so, then probably it did make an impact on the cost of hiring, right? What is the cost of recruitment? And then you try to, you know what you pay for development, and then you know what you pay for recruitment, and you try to make a business case. Another one is cost of burnouts, for instance, the hot topic of course, well-being. So what does it cost a company if someone is leaving the business for 3 months because of a burnout? And what if you can avoid that by just proactively giving the right knowledge and awareness about well-being and mental health? And I think that's how we try to make business cases in daily life at the moment. Sorry,
Thanks.
Martin.
Thanks, Tim. No, that's absolutely fine. I would love to see the ROI on the power of sleep. That would be amazing. Like, this person's getting 9 hours sleep and they're functioning better. I'd love to see some data and statistics on that within our learning environments. It'd be amazing. The last point I want to suggest here is learn together. And I realize this can be a bit of a challenge when we rely more and more on digital learning solutions. But this is possible, and something that we encourage at Good Habits with our blended learning lesson plans that we call our workouts. Workouts are essentially a lesson plan, a workshop that a manager or a trainer can use to bring our digital courses alive in a group setting, essentially. So I think this is really important, because then this gives what is generic e-learning content much more relevancy and it's much more applicable to the functions of the individuals in that team. We also did a market research study back in 2019, actually, that asked the respondents, 835 respondents in the UK, and this confirmed that employees that engage in soft skills training are much more likely to work harder, feel happier about the work they do, and much more likely to stick around. We can see the two bars here, pink bar and a white bar. And the pink bar is employees that engage in soft skills training in the last year versus the white bar that did not. And I think the byproduct of all of those things, maybe for our HR and L&D teams out there listening to this, is less disruption, less time spent hiring, training up new staff, better customer service, maybe better morale across the organization, and potentially better performance across the org. I would like to take a moment to read this quote. And the quote says, "In the age of automation, where technology is rapidly changing the nature of work, upskilling and sustainable employability have become increasingly important. By continuously learning and adapting to new technologies and skills that cannot be replicated by machines, individuals can ensure they remain competitive in the job market and maintain long-term career prospects." I won't tell you who that famous quote is from just yet. I'd just like to start off by saying yes.
I was going to say, Miss Govindan has already asked, "Where's it from?"
I will tell you in a few moments, but well, actually, I'll tell you in a few moments. But yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying sustainable employability, of course, is more than giving people training and career opportunities. It's more than that. But skill development and career development is an important pillar of that equation. And it's funny now, more than ever, there are many more opportunities to develop yourself today. I think, if we look at pre-COVID versus post-COVID, we've evolved from a place where we saw humans as human capital, and now we've evolved into a place where we're actually seeing them for who they truly are, human beings. And the role of L&D professionals has I think evolved over the years, pre and post pandemic, from content and curriculum to addressing skills gaps, which of course we've been covering today, and compliance, to a much more human-centric, people-centric experience provider. And we can also see this sentiment reflected in the most recent LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report, which says 81% of organizations want to build a people-centric culture. Now, as we can see in this example quote from ChatGPT, we are intertwining and moving closer to technology. And the role of L&D, I think, will invariably now move closer towards moving humans do what they do best, being human. And I think that's something a machine will never be able to completely replicate or do. And computers are wonderful, and they have brought us efficiency and convenience, but they're not advanced enough to take on interpersonal skills. The bots and the AI and automation can't manage a team of people, or can't present wonderful presentations, or empathize, or negotiate a great deal, or build great relationships. These skills are human ability to connect with one another and read each other's emotions and read situations. These are the skills that I think will become more and more valued in the age of automation. So,
Miss Govindan, that's the source of the quote. It was from ChatGPT, Martin, yeah?
Indeed, yes, the very famous ChatGPT.
Influence.
So I hope we're everyone here is behind the human skills push. But I realise that getting learners to engage with digital learning can sometimes be a challenge. So in this next section of this webinar, we'd like to discuss how we at Good Habits we work to entice learners to our programs. And from our experience and usage data, we see a common theme with customers launching digital learning solutions like Good Habits. And despite there being a strong need and want, without relevancy, context, ongoing engagement initiatives, we typically see low uptake of digital learning unless we do something about it, of course. And we know from our experience that learning initiatives must be relevant and enticing to our learners, and we must periodically stoke the L&D flame to keep that fire burning. But before we dive into our model, the model that we use at Good Habits to engage learners, aside from usage data, I would like to ask everyone here on this webinar, how do you measure the success of your L&D initiatives? So not using usage data, how do you measure the success of your L&D initiatives? What are you measuring?
Apologies, I was talking away and there I was on mute. I'm really interested to see the responses to this as well. Please do put your comments in chat 3 or the general chat and observations boxes. I think I'm particularly interested in this one is you're measuring success of L&D initiatives. So we're not just measuring L&D, but we're measuring the success. So I'm really keen to see what people put down here as well. So Christy said the easy ones are, completion data, etc., etc. The harder stats are how it's impacted the business, teams, and individuals. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely, it's the qualitative data there that's harder to gather, isn't it? Because there's usually so many factors at play, whether or not the learning initiative that you've created and then presented to the people actually had a knock-on effect on whether or not it had the desired effect. Is it making them better at their jobs? So this is the age-old challenge that the L&D department faces with measuring the success of their initiatives.
I think here is also to add, to step in this one. I think it's therefore also super important for L&D to get middle management or leadership layer in, right? So they are from the business itself, and if we get them in the place where they have better conversations with their employees, and not only talk about the very job specific stuff, but also about your personal development, and not only saying here is a course library that we have facilitated, take whatever you want, but much more directed. Say, I think you might need a course around giving feedback. It might help you to present yourself better in the team and to help your growth, your career here. I think the chance that person is taking such a course is higher, but also come back to that, right? As a leader. So we have to train our leaders to have those better conversations where you not only suggest a course, but also when you come back to it, 2 weeks later, did you learn something? What can you apply? Only those 2 questions can make a big difference on, the learning effect of an individual. Of course, from an L&D perspective, it's hard to measure all those individuals, but if it will definitely have a positive impact on those team leads and the teams, and they are the business. So if they are happy, I think you have gained a lot of support for your L&D initiatives.
It's funny that you say that, Tim, because actually one place where I see the impact of learning is through our workouts. So the lesson plans that I mentioned earlier, where we have a face-to-face component, essentially a blended learning approach, where you come in, discuss the topic, then do the Good Habits course, then come back for the reflection session, and you see the understanding of the topic and how it could be applicable to one's job in that reflection session. So I think that's a really nice way of again, sort of measuring it in a qualitative way. Like, are people grasping the topic? Can they help each other out with that learning topic by having a conversation at the end, using a face-to-face component with a digital component as well?
Yeah, and I saw one of the comments in the chat as well. Relevancy is super important, right? For Good Habits, for instance, we have quite a generic library. So if you want to do a course around feedback, it's a course around feedback that teaches you some techniques on how to deliver feedback. And we try to make it very practical, of course. But to make it even more relevant, it's good to have that conversation or that session with your team to first discuss the topic. What does it mean for us? Why is it hard to give feedback? And then it becomes more relevant to take those techniques that you have learned into practice.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. If we could move on again, gentlemen. Useful conversation.
Tim, I'm going to pass it over to you now, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, this is for us a very exciting part, because I always say we deliver content, and that's the core of who we are. But it's also pretty easy to deliver digital content. It's basically a push on the button and you have access. So what is more interesting is to see how can we impact the learning culture? How can we get people into learning and really change behavior? So we're always thinking about this. It's something we continue to learn along the way. But we came up with this model. We call it the IOT model, where the I stands for individual, the O for organization, and the T for teams. So basically, it means that we say if you have learning, L&D should always focus on those 3 levels. It's always a combination of the 3. It's never one of them. And to start with the individual. So where Good Habits comes in, Good Habits says learning is for each individual. So if you have a company with, let's say, 1,000 employees, everyone gets access and can take whatever they want to do. It's positive. Definitely has a positive effect in terms of, you know, the employer branding and just a very positive message, of course. But you'll also rely on intrinsic motivation, and that people really start doing courses. And we have learned something about it, and probably recognizable for the most of you. But it's quite an easy thing to say. You know, if learning is learning important to you? If you ask that question, we have learned that the majority, almost 90%, says yes, it's important or very important. But if you then ask, you know, what are you doing for your personal development? There is a big gap, right? Only 10 to 30%, depending on factors as educational level. Do you have a workplace with computer and internet connection or not? What is the existing learning culture? Those factors are of course influencing, but it never goes more higher than 30%. There's always a group that just struggles with change and struggle with developing, don't see the need. But the majority, and that's positive, the majority of the employees just don't know where to start, just don't know where to find the time. They acknowledge it's important, but they don't do something out of their own intrinsic motivation. You have to help them a little bit from an L&D perspective. So if we want to create a culture of learning, we believe it's important that you see the C. The C is the coach. Martin is one of our coaches. So we support our customers with a Good Habits coach. But we try to work on 2 other levels to impact on that intrinsic motivation. So the first one is the organizational level. We believe that you have to create context and urgency to get people into learning, right? You have to explain why they should, and that's the why, communicating the why, but also the why of a specific learning offering. So why, and also what they can do. And we call this learner marketing. And I think this is where we make a lot of impact, or can make a lot of impact, and where L&D can still make a lot of progress in, right? So we develop nice and interesting initiatives. It's really groundbreaking sometimes and really good, but we not always good in presenting what we do. So tell the organization what we do, show it off, sell it to the organization, basically. And we say learning marketing is super important in this case. Get people into your LMS, into your learning initiatives. And well, we do that by creating nice videos together with the customers, posters with leaflets, postcards, table cards, you name it, all kinds of marketing. We have hundreds of marketing materials that you can create bespoke, but it's super important to give context and urgency. So what we basically do here, connect to your organizational themes, your organizational learning programs, your corporate values, operational values, you name it, stuff that is important for you. And we make the connection to a specific course and then help you to promote it and do learner marketing. So find the right angle, basically. Find the right angle during the year. It's not only once a year, it's not only at the start, it's during the year, constantly communicate about it. It's also a matter of repetition. You know, you can tell one time to the organization that there is a lot of learning available, but you have to repeat the message every month in order to land it well in the organization. The other layer is team level. So organization really about learner marketing, communication. On team level, it's more to embed it into the culture. Right, and here we talk about the teams, and who are the most important people here are the team leads, of course. That layer of middle management that we discussed earlier today as well. So how do we get them into that coaching role? That's the big question. A lot of leaders are just promoted in that role because they were good in their job. But if you talk about coaching, it's a different story. They don't always feel comfortable. And they feel comfortable talking about the business, but don't always comfortable talk about, you know, how can we improve ourselves. So what we try to do here is get team leads on board, inspire them. So we give, for example, inspiration sessions. So you as an L&D department or HR department, it would be really good to have those sessions with your team leads, inspire them, they really know that they should be coaching the team and improving the teams, but they don't know where to start. So we have, for example, a tool, we call it workouts. For every course that we have, a lesson plan specifically for those team leads to help them discuss the topic in their teams. And the nice benefit of that is that you bring the concept of that topic, the concept of that course into the team, in the context of the team. So we talked about feedback, but it's for everything. We talk about influencing. Mindfulness is a nice one. So whatever topic you want to discuss as a leader or as a team, you can also decide as a team to what you want to develop as a team. So then with the workout, you can have a session about it and bring it to the context of the team, and it becomes more relevant. And you stimulate the appetite, the curiosity. So in order to stimulate a learning culture, we say, do it on those 3 levels. And if you talk about the 70-20-10 model of Charles Jennings, I always say we know our place as Good Habits. We are a formal learning institute, only responsible for 10% of people learn. So we have to bring it into the daily life of people. And we do that by making it super accessible, very small. Micro learnings was discussed as well. Make it super easy to consume content, but also bring it into the teams where people learn together, discuss together. Digital learning is not the solution for all learning needs. People really appreciate if they can share it with their peers and discuss the topic with other people. And so that is what we try to do with this model. It's always in development. We continue to develop new tools. But if you're able to manage L&D on an individual level, so make it very clear for the individual what is out there, but also support them in finding the right content. We have, for example, an assessment. We call it the Good Scan. It's a very short assessment, but it's a combination of the big 5 personality traits and our competence model, and you get an explanation which courses to take. On organizational level, connected to your topics, and on team level, embedded within the HR cycles. So that's, I think, what we before I go to the end slide. I think maybe this is good to know as an L&D. So this is applicable for Good Habits, but I think for all your learning initiatives, and make it a round story, explain it well, do a lot of learner marketing, and bring it into the teams. So I hope it was useful, and maybe there are some questions that we can discuss. But if you would like to try Good Habits, always available is a trial account, 14 days. You can just do every course in every language we have available. So feel free to scan the QR code over here and try it out.
We've also got the link in the resources from today's webinar. So the link to the trial for Good Habits is available there, as well as the talent management report that we brought up earlier on in the session as well.
The really interesting session, guys. Thank you so much. We are going to run out of time shortly. However, there is a question in there from Christy, which I think is a really important one, which is sort of like cuts across a lot of the things that I've been talking about, which is, what skills do you feel will be the most beneficial where automation is disrupting industries and job roles?
I think I personally believe that it's the human skills that will be the most important, because they're the things that the computers and the robots and the automation cannot do, and the skills have become more and more valued in the age of automation.
Yeah. And Tim?
Yeah, I think it's always a combination, right? We always need experts, but they are very intrinsically motivated to know more about their expertise. But you also see the people who are most successful within an organization in terms of happiness, but also in terms of career progress, are the ones who are able to combine those hard skills with soft skills. And as Martin called it, human skills. I think, they are always relevant. That's the nice thing about them, right? We will always be a bunch of people together trying to organize something, and therefore human skills are, always relevant.
Absolutely. And just so everybody knows, so that Martin and Tim aren't just coming up with these ideas themselves. The LinkedIn report says exactly the same. Number one is management. Communication is in there as well. So these guys are absolutely on point with this. Thank you to everybody for your questions and comments. Thank you for your engagement and with the sessions. Please do get in touch with Tim and Martin if you have anything further. It just leaves me to say thank you to both Martin and Tim for your time today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you can join us again in an hour, where we'll be doing a session relating to, again, a topic on everybody's minds. We're talking about AI in a little bit more detail. But for now, I would like to say thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much, Martin. And thank you, everybody else, for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.